At the edge of the last ice age, nearly 30,000 years ago, the landscape of Europe was a cold expanse of tundra and ice. Vast glaciers carved their way across the continent. Herds of mammoth and bison moved slowly through the plains. In the shadows of the caves that dotted these frozen valleys, small bands of humans fought daily to survive. For centuries, we've told the story of prehistoric life as one of men with spears venturing into the wilderness to hunt. But the true rhythm of Ice Age life was sustained not only by the hunters, but by the women who worked tirelessly behind the scenes, the Cavewomen. For most of human history, survival depended on cooperation. The people of the Upper Paleolithic lived in groups of 20 to 40 individuals, extended families bound by necessity. The men hunted large game when they could, but hunting was dangerous and unpredictable. One failed expedition could mean hunger for the entire group. The women, meanwhile, ensured that food never ran out completely. They were the gatherers, the foragers, and the guardians of knowledge, the foundation of every tribe's survival. From the moment the pale winter light touched the mouth of the cave, the women were already awake. Their days began early, long before the hunters returned. While the fire crackled weakly against the morning frost, they moved quietly, feeding infants, wrapping themselves in animal hides, checking the embers of the previous night's fire. Fire was everything: warmth, light, and protection. Keeping it alive was a daily duty. A single mistake could mean freezing to death before dawn. Women passed down the delicate knowledge of fire-making through generations: which bark to dry, which stone sparked best, how to keep the flame alive in a cave that breathed cold air from the valley. As daylight spread across the land, the women stepped out to gather food. They knew the terrain better than anyone. Every root, berry, and edible leaf was stored in their memories, mapped across seasons. They knew when certain plants grew, which mushrooms could heal and which could kill. Their knowledge was not written in books, but carried in stories, songs, and daily practice. Archaeologists believe that over 70% of prehistoric diets came not from hunting, but from gathering, a contribution driven almost entirely by women. They provided the constant stream of calories that made the dangerous hunts possible at all. In the colder months, food was scarce. Women scavenged for animal bones left by predators, cracking them open with stone tools to reach the nutrient-rich marrow inside. They dug through the frozen soil for edible roots and trapped small animals like hares and birds. Their survival skills were meticulous. The concept of home, the sense of a central hearth, was largely shaped by them. While men roamed to track herds, women kept the group grounded, caring for children, preserving food, maintaining tools, and ensuring that the sick or elderly were not left behind. Inside the caves, their world was alive with sound and texture. The smell of smoke mixed with drying hides. Infants cried softly in the arms of mothers who soothed them with rhythmic hums. The walls flickered with light from torches made of pine resin. Around the fire, women prepared hides for clothing, scraping off the fat and fur, softening the leather with animal fat or urine, and stitching it with bone needles. Some of the earliest examples of tailored clothing in Europe come from this period, and it was women's craftsmanship that made it possible to survive the cold. But cave women were not merely caretakers or gatherers. They were artisans and innovators. Archaeological discoveries reveal that many prehistoric art pieces, beads, ornaments, and figurines were made by women. The famous Venus figurines, small carved statues of full-bodied female forms, are now thought by many scholars to be self-representations, possibly the world's first self-portraits. They symbolized fertility, life, and the continuity of the tribe. They may have been created by pregnant women, using their own bodies as models, their round forms representing both survival and the miracle of birth. Cave art itself, the haunting images of bison, horses, and handprints deep within caves like Lascaux and Chauvet, might not have been the work of men alone. Recent research has shown that many of the handprints found on cave walls belong to women. This discovery has reshaped our understanding of prehistoric art. It suggests that women were storytellers, shamans, and keepers of cultural memory. In the flicker of torchlight, painting by the fire, they might have told their children the story of the hunt, the seasons, and the spirits of the animals they depended upon. During the warmer months, women worked together in small groups outside the caves. Cooperation was their strength. They shared child-rearing responsibilities, a system anthropologists call alloparenting. Older women, who no longer bore children, became caretakers and teachers, passing on generations of survival wisdom. This cooperation freed younger women to gather food or craft tools. In this way, knowledge flowed across generations like a continuous thread, binding the community together. The prehistoric world was dangerous and unpredictable. Injuries were common, and childbirth was perilous. Yet women developed remarkable knowledge of natural medicine. They used herbs to treat wounds, teas to ease pain, and moss as primitive bandages. Burned charcoal mixed with fat might be applied to cuts as an antiseptic paste. Such knowledge wasn't mystical. It was learned through centuries of observation. Trial and error turned into tradition. Some of these plant remedies, discovered tens of thousands of years ago, are still used by indigenous peoples today. As the day wore on, the camp would fill with movement and noise. Children played with bones and stones, imitating the adults' work. Women shared stories of spirits in the mountains, of ancestors who became stars. Their voices echoed softly inside the cave, blending with the sound of wind outside. Life was short, but it was deeply communal. Every member mattered. The women were not only mothers or daughters, they were the heartbeat of the tribe. When the hunters returned, sometimes after days of absence, the camp came alive with excitement. The smell of fresh meat drew everyone together. Women helped butcher the animal using sharp flint blades, separating meat from bone, drying it near the fire to preserve it for the coming days. Fat was melted and stored in animal skins for use as fuel or food. Nothing was wasted. The division of labor was practical, not political. It was shaped by strength, knowledge, and circumstance, an unspoken understanding that survival required everyone's contribution. In the evening, as the temperature dropped and the horizon burned red with sunset, the tribe gathered around the fire. It was a time for warmth, for stories, for quiet moments of reflection. Women nursed infants and brushed the hair of their children with bone combs. They repaired clothing and tools, sewed small pouches from animal hides to carry seeds and herbs. Around them, shadows danced on the cave walls, their movements echoing the rhythm of the flames. For many thousands of years, this was the rhythm of human life, slow, patient, and deeply connected to nature. The world outside was changing. Glaciers advanced and retreated. Animals migrated in new patterns. But the role of women remained constant. Their knowledge of plants, cycles, and survival shaped the course of human evolution. Without them, the species could not have endured the cold or the hunger. Their work left few traces in the archaeological record. No monuments, no weapons, but their legacy lies in the continuity of life itself. Every human alive today descends from those small groups who huddled in caves and firesides, guided by women's care and endurance. In recent decades, science has begun to rediscover this hidden history. Analysis of ancient bones, DNA, and tools has challenged long-held assumptions about gender roles. Studies show that some women also hunted, using lightweight spears or bows to take down small prey. Others joined the men in group hunts. Evidence from ancient graves shows women buried with weapons, suggesting a far more complex social structure than once imagined. The old image of the man the hunter and woman the gatherer is fading, replaced by a more accurate picture, one of partnership and adaptability. Cave women also played a vital role in early migration. As humans spread from Africa into Eurasia, Women were the genetic bridge between groups. Marriages or exchanges between tribes were common, often through women, ensuring genetic diversity and social alliances. In this way, they shaped not just survival, but evolution itself. Every step of the human journey was guided by their resilience, from the African savannas to the frozen caves of Europe. The rhythm of their lives was guided by the natural world, the waxing of the moon, the flow of rivers, the cycle of birth and death. Their spirituality reflected this connection. Some archaeologists believe that prehistoric women were central figures in early ritual life, priestesses or shamans who communicated with the unseen world. Fertility symbols, burial offerings, and cave art all suggest a worldview where women embodied life itself. The earth was seen as feminine, nurturing, and sacred, a reflection of the mothers who gave life to every generation. As night deepened and the fire burned low, the women of the tribe prepared for sleep. Infants nestled beside them under hides of reindeer or bison. The fire's warmth flickered on their faces, illuminating the lines of exhaustion and determination. They slept lightly, waking often to feed or stoke the fire. For them, there was no distinction between day and duty. Survival was a constant rhythm that never paused. In the modern world, we often imagine progress as a straight line, from primitive to advanced. But the story of the cave women reminds us that humanity's survival was never just about strength or hunting skill. It was about knowledge, empathy, and endurance. These women lived without written language, without metal, without comfort. Yet they built the foundations of human society. They invented the earliest forms of clothing, childcare, art, and medicine. They carried stories through generations and transformed the wild earth into a home. If you were to step into their world, to walk through the entrance of a cave 30,000 years ago, you would find not helpless figures waiting for hunters, but skilled survivors at work. Women kneeling by the fire, mending hides. Children learning to weave grasses into cords. Elder women teaching which roots could cure fever. The air thick with smoke and laughter. A world that was harsh, but full of quiet intelligence. Archaeologists continue to uncover their traces. A bead carved from ivory. A handprint on a wall. A strand of hair preserved in the frozen soil. Each discovery brings us closer to understanding that prehistoric life was not divided by simple roles of man and woman, but bound together by a shared struggle to endure. And at the heart of that struggle stood the cave women, mothers, artists, healers, and leaders, whose unseen labor kept humanity alive through the darkest winters of prehistory. Their story is not one of subservience, but of resilience. Theirs is the story of civilization before civilization, of women who lived not in palaces or cities, but in the raw heart of nature. They were the first teachers, the first scientists, the first keepers of culture. When we look at the handprints on the cave walls, we are not just seeing ancient art. We are seeing their fingerprints across time, a silent message that says, we were here too. And so, as the Ice Age slowly melted and the world began to warm, it was not just the hunters who carried humanity forward, but the women who lit the fires, who sang to their children, who gathered the first seeds that would one day grow into agriculture and civilization. Every dawn, every survival, every generation owes something to them. The cave women who, against all odds, kept the story of humanity alive.